Hello from Miles and Olive, who's going to hang in the backlight. Just hanging out in the pig stall. These guys have had breakfast already. It's kind of a rainy, icky day, so they're a little bit more about leaning in on hanging in their stall. They know I'm not feeding them anymore because they just had their breakfast, so they're not really looking for food, which is a good thing, I suppose. Otherwise, they'd be really up in my grill. I don't know what Olive is doing here. I think she's scratching her chin. Are you scratching your chin on the threshold? You're so funny. So if you're new here, these guys are Olive and Miles. Miles is showing you his best side right now. Olive is a full-bred potbelly pig. She is not a mini, but she is small in the scheme of what potbelly pigs are. Miles is a blend of potbelly and Juliana, and he is also on the smaller side for that particular breed and mix. Both of these pigs are semi-rescue. By semi-rescue, I mean that they weren't in dire straits. Well, Miles was in rough shape. But they, it wasn't a life or death situation. It was more an opportunistic situation to give them better lives and better position in the world. So these guys are a great example of what I would call healthy pigs should look like. Miles is a little tubby in the belly, but that's because it's summertime. In summer, they eat all the grasses and the weeds and the things that grow up in their pastures, and they get what I call a grass belly. But if you look at the top of their heads, both of them do not have those big fat pads on their heads that you see on a lot of pigs. But let me tell you, and I'm sitting on the floor, so I'm trying to give you kind of a perspective of size that's appropriate. They're both closing in on 100 pounds. And like I said, that's kind of small. Oh, they're going to move on me, so we're going to have to move. I just got comfortable sitting in your sawdust. So they're both going on about 100 pounds, just shy. They're in the 90s at their last weigh-in, which was about a month and a half ago. And that is healthy weight for them and for their size, but it's actually small for a potbelly. It's small even for a Juliana potbelly mix. So, I think I've done a couple of videos and a couple of talks. Oh, Olive has to tinkle. So we'll give you a little less tinkle shot. So I'm not going to go into the whole lecture on how there doesn't, teacup pigs and micro pigs and mini pigs don't exist. If you want to know more, leave a comment. I'll do another video on it, or I'll link one that I've already done. Definitely leave me a comment if you want to learn more about pigs, though. I'm happy to talk about it because it does drive me crazy to continue to see those type of pigs marketed as something that exists in this world, and they don't exist in this world for a lot of reasons. But I do like to give you some perspective that not every potbelly pig has to be a tremendous pig, right? They don't all get to 300 pounds. 100 is low end, 150 is probably normal, and more than that starts to become obese. And that's why I say, like, with my guys, you don't see that big fat pad on their head that covers their eyes. Are they round? Are they rotund? Yes. Are they healthy? Yes. Now, these guys are also closing in on 15 years old, so they're seniors. They're full grown. There isn't anything that's going to change that. This is their size. And in fact, over the winter, Miles actually got a little too thin, and we've been working for the last few months to put some weight back on him. He now looks pretty good. His top line is now filled out, but he's not round, right? His belly hangs low because it's full of all the yummies, but he's not pushed out and, like, wide. but his spine isn't showing, his sides aren't caved in, he's sort of just nicely filled out. Olive is very similar in that sense. Now, she's got a different shape because she's full pot belly. But she's also, you know, her top line doesn't stick out to the sides. It's just nice and round. She's got her pot belly. It's actually not as big as Miles. What? I know, Miss Olive. I know. It's me. Yes, silly girl. What'd you think? Right, so she's of course in her beautiful summer coat, which means she's lost most of her hair. In the winter, she's covered with that beautiful, coarse hair of hers, but in the summer, woof, she drops it. So yeah, just a quick, you know, check-in and trying to give you some size perspective with a little bit of a different viewpoint on these guys. What are they eating, right? So I've talked about before that they graze in the pasture. Now, if we were to give them full pasture with all the pasture grass, they would spend all day eating grass and they would get tremendous, obese, huge. So we opted to do something a little bit different and we let their pasture go completely natural. And that means that we have weird things happen, like pumpkins and gourd plants show up for no reason. We have different wildflowers that pop up throughout the season. Right now it's looking a little rough. There's not much grasses here, but whatever is coming out, they pick through selectively. They eat what they want, and it sort of keeps them in balance. Because, and I've done this, I had them out on grass, right, in my yard, right? Farm version 1.0, we didn't have a pig pasture. They went out in the dog yard. And because they went out in the dog yard, they had access to tons and tons of regular lawn grass, just grass. And their bellies would get tremendous. And while they didn't build up the fat reserves because they were young, they were active, they were running with the dogs, we kept them, you know, fed manageably. And in the winter, that grass belly would bleed off. But certainly, that's not the cycle you want to keep them on, is getting obese in the summer and thin in the winter. And as we move to farm 2.0, which is where we are now, when we put the pasture in, we specifically thought about that. Thunder. We specifically thought about that and tried to keep them in a place where they could forage, where they could have access to bugs and grubs and yummy things that they could dig up, but also that they didn't have lush, thick grasses that would drive that obesity. And it's a balance. It's hard, right? Like most pigs, these guys, for whatever reason, do not, but most pigs will have rooted this up and made it an absolute just full-on mud hole. These guys are a little bit gentler on their pasture, which is nice. And we have the opportunity from time to time to move them into other pastures that have gone wild, and give them some different foraging. And again, because it's gone wild, it's not thick, lush grasses, it's more weeds and forage, which, you know, is good for them to explore, to, you know, just to have different smells and different things to snortle through. So this here next door is my baby goat pasture. And as you can see, after the baby goats have all gone home, this is about, let's see, what are we, mid-July? Last baby goat went home beginning of June, end of May, probably a little later than that. Mid-June? Yeah, mid-June. So it's only been about a month since the last baby goat left. Probably been about 2 months since the pasture really had a break, right? And look at how lush and green and thick. And yes, it's weeds. It's I don't know what kind of grass it is, but it's not normal lawn grass. There's clover in here. There's all sorts of goodies in here. And it's fun, right? So this is great for the pollinators, but at the same time, it's also great for giving the pigs some, you know, entertainment from time to time. And because they can't get into it without us allowing them to, it does give us the ability to control, you know, how much of it they eat versus how much is just, you know, stimulating their brain. More thunder. Big rolling thunder. I'm probably going to get in trouble for him. Hubby's probably in the house wondering what the heck I'm doing out here and why I'm not back in the house when there's thunder happening. But I'm safe. I'm in the barn. All is well. All the animals are sort of hanging by the barn because it is raining. It's not really raining hard. It's just raining, and clearly it's rumbling. Isn't that right, Penny? So everybody's sort of hanging in the barn, and the haze and the smoke and everything else is no fun. This is how he drinks. He just shoves his whole head in the bucket and makes a mess. All right. But that's, I think that's enough lecture on the pigs. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of how we manage them, how we maintain their weight, why they're, you know, still in really good shape at 15. And part of why they probably don't tear up their pastures because they know that we're going to give them stimulation and get into other pastures and other things that they can explore. And that keeps them fairly stimulated. Because pigs are really smart. We'll talk about that in a different video because this has gotten long already. So, hope you all are having a good day. And until next time, there's work to be done. Bye for now.